My name is Kristen Landon. I was born in a small town in Michigan, but then my family moved back to Utah when I was 2, which I grew up mostly in Orem and Salt Lake, and then moved back to Michigan actually right out of college. I went to BYU, and my husband got a job right out of college. We went back to Michigan for 12 years, and then moved back to Utah. And we actually lived in American Fork for 1 year when we came back. So this American Fork was my library for a year. It was great. And then we moved to Highland where there was no library, so that was very sad. But so I do love libraries. Of course, being a reader and a writer. And I'm married with 4 kids. They're all grown now. And I love to write, love to read. Write mostly for young adults and middle grade age. I remember wanting to be a writer before I could even write. I have memories of dictating stories to my mom, making her write them down for me. And one of the main things I think that made me become a writer is that I have a really hard time falling asleep at night. You know, we'll go to sleep, we'll lay in bed, and my husband will be out like in 30 seconds. And I'm always like, what? Well, I lay there for like 20 or 30 minutes. And so all growing up, and even still to this day, I'll just tell myself stories as I'm trying to fall asleep. And as a child then, I would go and once I could actually write, I would go into my dad's office and use his typewriter, which for those of you who don't know, a typewriter came before a computer, and computers are a lot better. But I would type out my stories, and I remember my friends coming and dragging me out, you know, let's go outside and play, and I'd be like, okay, let me just finish this. But even as a child, I never thought, oh, I want to grow up and be an author, because those were not like real people that I thought, you know, that an average person could turn into. I just knew I loved to write. And that's one thing I'll tell young people too, is that, you know, if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, go back and look at what you just love to do in your free time as a child, and that can give you a good clue. So for me, it was writing. And as I grew up, you know, high school and college, the time just to write for fun just kind of disappeared. And I got married and had a couple kids, and I realized that I was still telling myself stories in my mind all the time. And so I decided, well, since I have those stories, I might as well try to write them down. And so I started writing them down, and after a while I thought, well, if I'm writing these down, maybe I should try to get them published. And so that just opened up a whole new world of learning, you know, to be a better writer, learning about the whole publishing world, which is crazy and changes all the time. And I'm still learning. I think we all continue to learn throughout our whole lives. And so I still love writing for fun. So the books I have published, I have visual aids I will show you. So my first book that I had published was called Life in the Pit. It was published by a small publishing house in Texas, which went out of business like a year or 2 after it got published. So, you know, it didn't do a whole lot. But it's a young adult, sweet romance with a bit of a mystery. And the main character is in the pit orchestra for her high school musical, and her best friend is the star of the play. And, you know, she just feels kind of invisible in the pit, and of course all the guys go after her friend, and she feels none go after her. But you'll have to read it to see if she does get a guy in this book. And then my next book was published by Simon & Schuster, Aladdin imprint, and it's called The Limit, which was a dystopian thriller, middle grade, which there's not a whole lot of those. Usually it's young adult. So in this book, in the society that they live, the government has taken over all of the financial institutions and have assigned each family a debt limit. So if they go over that limit, certain bad things can happen. And one of the things that can happen is they can take a child away and make them work in a workhouse to help pay off the family debt. And of course, that's what happens to my main character. And he learns that there's this corruption, things going on at the workhouse that no one really knows about. So it's an exciting book. This is the hardback cover, and this is the paperback cover, which was different. I like the hardback personally myself, but it's a fun, exciting book that a lot of middle grade school, that age, they really like. So after being published by publishing houses, I've kind of taken a different route and more publishing my books more independently. So about a year ago, Omega Alpha came out, which is about a virus. It came out last November, so I tell people I'm sorry, I was predicting the future. But if you read Omega Alpha, you'll realize that the coronavirus is not as bad as the Omega Alpha virus was going to be. Because the Omega Alpha virus was created by an eco-terrorist group who was trying to save the world by getting rid of a lot of people on it by killing them with this virus. But fortunately, in this book, we have my young character who is thrown into this world and is fighting to stop the virus from breaking out. So it's also an exciting thriller book. And then just about a month ago, we decided, I say we because I have a friend who helps me with my publishing, we decided to re-release Life in the Pit. Because it came out a while ago, it needed a little bit of updating. I added, cell phones and things that I hadn't had in it originally, and it had never come out as an ebook originally. So I was excited to be able to have that option available for people who like to read digitally. So it's basically the same story, but it feels like it's taking place in our world now instead of 10 years ago. So I'm excited that that's out, and I really like this new cover as well. So that is the books that are out right now. I have a trilogy planned for 2021. That's a little bit of a sci-fi romance thriller as well, young adults. As writing, it is not a solitary endeavor, I would say. You need lots of other people to look at your work and help you with editing or just to read it and guide you with their opinions. I mean, you don't want to lose yourself completely to other people's opinions, but it is good to get other more sets of eyes on your work. Because I've read a lot that could have used that, a lot of books that needed a little bit of editing, so I would say definitely don't skip that step when you're trying to